Very good evening and welcome to Primetime News here on TV1. You're joining me, Devi Paldano. Now, before we head into your stories in more detail, let's first take a look at your headlines this evening.
President attends another phase of the discussion with the village program in Karuwalagaswaba. Health officials announced plans to obtain a further 300,000 COVID-19 vaccines through the COVAX facility. His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit visits the St. Sebastian's shrine in Katuwapitiya. Area residents express their displeasure over the progress of probes into the April 21st attack.
O-level pass වෙච්ච නැති මිනිසුන්ට මේක තීරණය කරන්න දෙන්න පුළුවන්.
Central Bank of Sri Lanka orders exporters to convert 25% of export proceeds from US dollars to Sri Lankan rupees. Subject ministers reveal plans to uplift sports in the country.
අපේකම ක්‍රීඩාව කණ්ඩායම හැංගීමෙන් ජයග්‍රහණය කරා යන්න පුළුවන් පිරිස හොයාගන්න අපි උත්සාහ කරා.
Of course, now going into one of your headline-making stories. The 11th phase of the Gama Samaga Pilisandarak program was held at the Karuwalagaswaba in Puttalam today. The event was attended by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. The President first visited the Muriyakulam Primary School in Puttalam. The President later attended a meeting organized at the Karuwalagaswaba Public Hall.
There are many who oppose this program that point out mistakes in this program. They must be scared that they might lose their opportunities in the future when the head of state goes and visits the people directly. When they get scared like that, we must continue this program to scare them even more. That is the tactic. Some things that I say are misinterpreted. I was informed of the land issues at almost every place that this program was conducted. Due to a mistake on the part of the forest conservation officials, the limits of the forest reserves have been marked in areas that were once traditional farming grounds of the people in these villages. So we held discussions and decided on a policy to allow these people to farm on these lands. I do not know what exactly is it that they don't understand. What I said was very clear. No one has been given permission to clear forests. So if deforestation is taking place, the officials must put a stop to it immediately, because that is not what was said. Even social media is now ready to carry out false propaganda and sabotage these programs. During this program, many people said that they don't really care about anything and to chase away the elephants. This is an issue that is prevalent in many areas. There is a separate ministry to deal with this issue. We also established a task force to find solutions to this issue. One of the main priorities of this program is not only to inquire into the problems of the people. That is why we have named the program Gama Samaga Pilisandarak. The people of these villages have good ideas on how to solve these issues. It might not be the same way that our officials think. So all of those ideas too must be expressed during this program. You, as the people who have been living in these villages, know the solutions to the issues that you face here. You must present these ideas, then the officials can consider these ideas and implement them.
පිළිබඳවත් අදහසක් තියෙනවා. ඒ අදහස් ඉදිරිපත් කරන්නට ඕන. එතකොට නිලධාරීන්ට පුළුවන් ඒ අදහස් ගැන සලකා බලලා ඒවා ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්නට.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa paid homage to the temple of the sacred tooth relic yesterday.
The Prime Minister was welcomed by Devadane Nilame, or the lay custodian of the Temple of the Tooth, Pradeep Nilangadala. After paying homage to the sacred tooth, the Prime Minister called on the Mahanayaka of the Malwatu chapter, Most Venerable Tibbatuave Sri Sumangala Thera. The Prime Minister also called on the Anunayakas of the Malwatu chapter, Venerable Timbul Kumure Sri Saranankara Vimaladharma Thera and Venerable Nyangoda Vijitasiri Thera. Subsequently, the Prime Minister visited the Askeri Mahavihara and called on the Mahanayaka Most Venerable Varakagoda Jnanaratana Thera. The Prime Minister also called on the Anunayaka of the Askeri chapter, Venerable Vendaruwe Upali Thera. Finally, the Prime Minister visited the Askeri Mahapirivena and called on the Pirivenadipati and Deputy Lekadhikari of the Askeri chapter, Sastrapati Narampanave Ananda Thera.
A protest was organized today in opposition of the cabinet committee that has been appointed to study the report presented by the Presidential Commission appointed to probe the April 21st attacks. The protest was held at the St. Sebastian Shrine in Katuwapitia, Negombo.
A group of people engaged in a silent protest opposite the St. Sebastian Shrine in Katuwapitia following prayers. The protest, which was carried out by family members and relatives of the victims of the April 21st attack, demanded that the report of the Presidential Commission, which was appointed to probe the attack, must be made public with immediate effect, and those who are responsible must be brought before the law. Thereafter, Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Cardinal Malcolm Ranjit, arrived at the location. The government is afraid to reveal some information. All details gathered by the Commission must be publicized as they are. None of it can be hidden or selected and made public. What we want is to make this report public. Everything must be revealed.
විදියට හැම එකක්ම ප්‍රසිද්ධ කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒක එකක්වත් හංගන්න බෑ. එකක්වත් තෝරන්න බෑ. අපිට ඕනේ මේ වාර්තාව එලිදරව් කරන්න. ඒ හැම දෙයක්ම එලිදරව් කරන්න.
කාදිනතුමා එතකොට මේකට සම්බන්ධ සාරා කියන තැනැත්ති ඉන්දියාවට පලා ගියා කියලා කියනවා. එතකොට මේක එලිදරව්වේ කියන බයටද මේ වාර්තාව එළියට දෙන්නේ නැහැ.
අපි දන්නේ නැහැ ඒව ඇතුලේ මොන.
We do not know what is happening there. What I say is the government must make this report public. This must be handed over to us. Then we will decide what the next step will be.
එතකොට අපි ඒ අනුව සුදුසු දේවල් කරනවා.
ඔබ වහන්සේ හිතනවාද මේ අමාත්‍ය මණ්ඩල කමිටුවක් පත් කිරීම හරහා මේ ජනතාවට සාධාරණයක් ඉෂ්ට වෙයි කියලා?
මම හිතන්නේ නැහැ එහෙම සාධාරණයක්.
I do not think that justice will be served to these people. What I personally see is that this is an endeavor to keep several things under the wraps.
වනේ අපි ජාත්‍යන්තර සංවිධාන වලට යනවා කියලා ඒක අපි
Thereafter, His Eminence Cardinal Malcolm Ranjit entered the shrine and explained about the situation furthermore.
ඒක ජනතාවට එලිදරව් කරන්න. මුද්‍රණය කරලා ඒක බෙදා හරින්න.
It has to be printed and distributed. It is not a big task to print it and distribute it. We want leaders who have a strong backbone. We will not bow down our heads without getting justice for the people who lost their lives at this church premises. We are ready to go ahead with our own methods if the government keeps on turning a blind eye to this issue. We will go to the Catholic Church and fight for our rights. This Presidential Commission has the authority to punish the perpetrators as well. If the Commission has presented the report and has made the relevant recommendations, the Attorney General must take the next step. The recommendations have been made so that the Attorney General can take the necessary action. The Attorney General does not have to seek the advice of the President. This Presidential Commission, which comprised of 5 intellectual judges, gave their recommendations and their decision so that the government and the Attorney General can take action. Otherwise, are we to let people who have not even passed their ordinary level exam to take decisions on this?
ඒ කොමිෂන් සභාවෙන් යෝජනා කරේ. ඒ මිසක් O level පාස් වෙච්ච නැති මිනිසුන්ට මේක තීරණය කරන්න දෙන්න පුළුවන්.
Yesterday, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa appointed a committee to study the report of the Presidential Commission which probed the April 21st attacks and the report of the Sectoral Oversight Committee on National Security. Minister Chamal Rajapaksa has been appointed the chairman of the commission, while Ministers Johnston Fernando, Uday Gammampila, Ramesh Patirana, Prasanna Ranatunga and Rohita Begunawardena will form the rest of the committee. This matter was widely talked about in the political sphere today.
දැන් මෙන්න අලුත්ම නාටකයක් පටන් ගන්න තියෙනවා. මේ කොමිෂන් වාර්තාව පිළිබඳව නැවත අධ්‍යයනය කිරීම.
A new drama has been cooked up now. A committee has been appointed to study the report of another committee. That committee consists of some great individuals. We would like to warn the Cardinal. We are unsure of how many of the 100,000 pages in the report will be missing once this committee is done with it. The April 21st attacks is an annoyance to the government. So they have appointed a bunch of charlatans to clean up the matter.
පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ කෑ ගහලා දඟලන දේශපාලන ගෝලියෝ ටිකක් දාලා මේක සුදු කරන්න උත්සාහ කරනවා.
ජනාධිපති කොමිසමක් පත් කරාට පස්සේ ඒ කොමිසමේ වාර්තා
Once a presidential commission is appointed, the report will be presented to the cabinet first and only then will it be tabled in parliament. It is a massive report and there are only 27 ministers in the cabinet. We will be able to let the people know of the contents of the reports in the near future.
කටයුතු ඔයගලන්ට දැනගන්න පුළුවන් ජනතාවට මොනවද ඒක තියෙන්නේ කියලා.
මේ වාර්ෂික කොමිෂන් හරහා උගත් බුද්ධිමත් කණ්ඩායම හරහා සිද්ධ වෙන ඒ විමර්ශනයන් තුළ
We have been informed that this report includes information on not only those who neglected their duties leading to the attack, but also the true mastermind behind these attacks and the Sri Lankan group which supported Zaharan to carry out this attack. Is it because this particular group is aligned with the government that another presidential commission has been appointed to study it further?
නැවත මේක විමර්ශනය කරන්න තවත් ජනාධිපති කමිෂනාවක් පත් කරන්නේ.
අපි කියන්නේ පාස්කු ප්‍රහාරයේ
All we are saying is people who are capable should be appointed to study a report which was initially compiled by intellectuals. This is hilarious. Do not turn the people's sorrow into a joke. That is our advice to the government.
ඒ ජීවිතයේ දුක විහිළුවට ලක් කරන්නේ නැතුව උපහාසයට ලක් කරන්නේ නැතුව නිසි තීරණ ගන්න කියන එකයි අපි රජයට කියන්නේ.
නැවත වතාවක් මේ කැබිනට් අනුකමිටු දාලා ආණ්ඩුව මේ වාර්තාව දේශපාලනය.
Is the government attempting to politicize the April 21st attack by appointing a cabinet subcommittee to study these reports? Zara Jasmine, also known as Pulastini Mahendran, who is a main suspect and also one of the few surviving suspects, is currently in India. There are reports emerging to back that claim. The police officer who aided her escape to India is currently under arrest. Zara is the only living person who knows all the facts about this attack. We cannot see the government making an effort to extradite Zara. That is the truth. We have a doubt as to whether these committees were appointed to sabotage the extradition as well.
තියෙන උත්සාහයවන් යටගහන්නදෝ කියන ප්‍රශ්නයකුත් දැන් අපිට පැන නැග.
Has Sri Lanka lost the Trincomalee oil tanks? This is one of the main points of contention in the political arena. 102 oil tanks were constructed in Trincomalee during the Second World War between 1924 and 1930. These oil tanks were separated into two factions with 15 tanks in the lower facility and 84 tanks in the upper facility. 15 oil tanks are currently being used by the Lanka Indian Oil Corporation. In 2003, the Trincomalee oil tanks were handed over to India on a 35-year lease agreement. The Minister of Energy, Udaya Gamampila, spoke about regaining control over the oil tanks on the 17th of this month. However, the same minister yesterday clarified the statement that he made on reclaiming the oil tanks.
I never said that they will be taken over. When a media station was reporting my statement in English and an English newspaper had made a mistake in translation, they had used the word reacquire, but you would have seen me making the statement to media. I clearly said that the oil tanks that were leased off to India will be taken under our control again. I said that we hope to develop the oil tanks through a company in which the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation has a majority of shares and where the Lanka Indian Oil Company is a major stakeholder. The meaning had changed when it was edited. However, this is the statement that the minister made on the 17th of this month. Last Sunday, we were able to end the discussion on getting back the Trincomalee oil tanks to Sri Lanka. I haven't announced this anywhere yet. We were able to discuss and resolve the issues that we had with the Indian High Commissioner. I must specially state that the Indian High Commissioner was extremely flexible and even let go of some of the provisions in the agreement that was signed in 2017, and he agreed to all the conditions that were presented by us. These conditions were drafted after holding discussions with the upper management and trade unions. We would like to proudly announce that the Trincomalee oil tanks that were not utilized since the Second World War and was taken out of our control in 2003 will be brought back under our control in the near future.
අප සතු වෙන බව අපි ඊටාම ආඩම්බරයෙන් ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා.
ගම්මන්පිල කිව්වා අපි මේක පවර ගන්න.
Gamanpila said that we will take control of these. All discussions on the matter have concluded. He said that we are ready to do this. But what has happened now? Even before a month has elapsed, Gamanpila has started to go back on his word. There is no talk about taking control now. Do you consider the people in this country to be illiterate? Do you think they are children? When the media questioned the Prime Minister if the oil tanks were going to be taken back under our control, he asked them whether they are mad. We would also like to ask from Gamanpila whether he is mad. The Prime Minister is saying one thing, the President is saying another thing, and Basil Rajapaksa is saying something else. Wimal Weerawansa is saying something different. We've also got Uday Gammanpilla saying something completely different. The best lie in this is the statement on the oil tanks. One person said that the oil tanks won't be given away, and the Prime Minister says, "Are you mad?" And the Prime Minister asks whether he is mad and gets into his vehicle. What is happening here? We can see that this is a time when Sri Lanka is facing a crisis both inside our society as well as internationally. Uday Gammanpilla does not own the oil tanks. These are national assets. If the government is entering into agreements to leverage our national assets, such agreements must be disclosed to the general public. The government does not own anything. These belong to us, the people of this country. Any agreement concerning our national assets should be disclosed to the general public. Therefore, this is not an issue concerning any minister.
While the discussions on the sale of national assets continue, this is a look at the lives of the people who suffer from chronic kidney disease simply because they do not have access to clean drinking water. This is a story of a group of people whose dream is to one day be privileged enough to have a sip of clean water.
Residents of Kirivaldinia in Katiape, Deyandara, that falls under the Mulatiana Divisional Secretariat, have been drinking filtered rainwater. 224 families reside in this village. Although this tank in the area is overflowing, the people here have no water to drink. This project that was constructed 5 years ago to provide water to the people of this village is now abandoned. When the rain ceased to fall, these villages are left with no choice but to travel many miles in search of water.
කන්න නැතුව වේලක් වුණත් අපිට ජීවත් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. අපිට අත්‍යවශ්‍යම දේ තමයි වතුර.
පැවුම් කාලයක් ආවන් පස්සේ ගඟ දක්වා යන්න ඕන මේ වතුර එක දුබලට යන්න ඕන.
කිලෝමීටර් දෙකක් විතර මේ කැලේ බහැලා තමයි වතුර ගෙන්න යන්නේ.
These people request the authorities to resume the operations of this water project.
ගොඩාක් පවුල් අසරණ වෙලා තියෙන මේ ජලය නැතිකමෙන්. ඇවිල්ලා ඒ ජල ව්‍යාපෘතිය දිහා බලලා ඒක ආයේ නැවතත් සක්‍රිය තත්ත්වයට පත් කරලා දෙන්න කියලා මම මේක වගකීම් බලධාරීන්ගෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
People who haven't seen a glimpse of development. Pain and sorrow was their only inheritance. Over 100 families with no access to clean water. Only one tube well to provide for them all. In these parts of Sri Lanka, many people are suffering with chronic kidney disease. But today, they have access to clean water. The 14th Gammadda project for the year 2021 vested with the people.
We're going in for another short commercial break. Stay tuned with News First.
Struggling to find reliable plumbers, electricians, gardeners and other service providers? Bellboys got you covered.
Come back to the news. Farmers in Matale were taken by surprise when water in the paddy fields suddenly dried up. When inquiring into the matter, the farmers, to their astonishment, realized that the portion of land had sunk.
This phenomenon had occurred in a paddy field situated in Tibbatumulla Varyapola in Matale. Farmers had found out that the portion of earth had sunk when they were attempting to find out the reason behind the paddy field suddenly drying up. The Sudu River flows in close proximity to the paddy field. The National Building Research Organization inspected the site this morning. It believes this unusual event has been caused due to the disruption in the limestone layer of the Earth's crust. Multiple tremors were experienced over the past few months from the central and Uva province in Sri Lanka. Tremors occurred in Victoria. We ascertained several causes for the tremors. One cause was the limestone layer collapse and the large openings of the layers. What has happened today is the earth has sunk into such an opening. If it happens where there is a bed of water, we cannot prevent water seeping into it. The Victoria division, which runs close to the dam, also runs through this village. Maybe there are movements between these divisions. The tremors which occurred earlier could have given rise to these movements. On the 31st of last month, 3 tremors were reported in Akiriya, Lunugala, Badula during the course of 2 weeks. 9 tremors were reported in Digana Kandy during a 3-month time period. A tremor was reported yesterday in the seas of Panama. An expert committee appointed by the minister to study the tremors reported in Kandy and Badula. A report presented including details of possible causes of the tremors, recommendations to ban dolomite mining in close range to the Victoria tank and conduct further investigations. What steps were taken?
Now, in another one of the headline-making stories, the central bank has instructed all exporters to convert 25% of their US dollar proceeds in respect of exports to Sri Lankan rupees. The rule, published via an extraordinary gazette, will be imposed with effect from the 18th of this month.
According to the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, every exporter upon the receipt of export proceeds into Sri Lanka should convert 25% of their total exports proceeds to Sri Lankan rupees through a licensed bank. How will this move impact the export sector?
All export earnings have to be brought into the country within 180 days of the shipment date. 25% of these earnings have to be converted into rupees upon entry into the country. The central bank has also stated that the Monetary Board has the ability to change this percentage if they so wish, creating some uncertainty. The central bank has introduced these rules to ease exchange rate pressures and have brought them in at a time when the country has excessive liquidity and at a time where reserves are low. The downside of these policy interventions is that there are negative implications on exporters. Businesses have dollar liabilities given that there is a natural hedge. The rule that 25% of export earnings should be converted from dollars can create an unnecessary cost for these businesses. If the central bank wants to create more conversions from dollar accounts, it would be better to incentivize such conversions rather than put in place administrative edicts. For instance, at present, the interest rates on LKR fixed deposits are higher than those for dollar deposits, creating perverse incentives.
In addition to all the import restrictions, there is no way that importer can buy forwards. All the remittances, 10% of the remittances must be sold to the central bank. Now, as of today, 25% of all exports proceeds must be converted to rupees. These are not sustainable in the long run. Even in the short run, in order to recover from this situation, the central bank must relook at their monetary policy. If you look at the exporters are working on very thin margins, right? And to force them to convert 25% into rupees I don't think is a very fair thing to do. They all know that the rupee is not going in the right direction, that these exporters have a fairly large import component in that export. So imports are essential for exports. So they would rather hold the dollars, because in the next month or the month after that, they would need to use it for their working capital in terms of raw materials. So by doing this, you are actually hitting the exporters when the exporters need actually to be safeguarded, because those are the people who are keeping this country afloat right now. So I don't think this is the way to go.
The central bank also requires that exporters must receive all export proceeds within 180 days from the date of shipment. Exporters in the tea trade point out that complying to such a requirement is not practical due to the current COVID-19 situation across the globe.
Giving 180 days for the companies to bring back money is a major issue for the tea trade. With this current COVID situation, sometimes our goods takes a long time to reach the final destination. For the companies to receive it, clear it, and supply it to their final distributor sometimes takes about 100 days, 120 days. So paying back money in 180 days is always not possible. It is good if the central bank consider this situation and change this, to give little more time. Also, the banks will monitor this very strictly and they'll control credit. So that will the money will not come into the exporters. So that will depress the prices at the auction also.
While the World Health Organization said that they have prepared to provide 300,000 of the COVID-19 vaccines allocated for Sri Lanka. The representative of the Director General of the World Health Organization for Southeast Asian Region Specialist Dr. Palita Abekun said that this batch of vaccines will be given to Sri Lanka before the end of this month.
The World Health Organization has decided to provide Sri Lanka with 4 million doses of the vaccine under the COVAX facility. The organization announced that 300,000 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine allocated for Sri Lanka have already been packaged at the Serum Institute of India. The 4 million vaccine doses that Sri Lanka is due to receive under the COVAX facility will be provided under a number of phases. Under the first phase, Sri Lanka will receive 1.6 million doses. The World Health Organization announced that this batch of 1.6 million doses will be given to Sri Lanka during the course of the next 3 months. The World Health Organization points out that the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine can be stored for a period of 6 months, and therefore the vaccine doses are dispatched in batches. Meanwhile, the State Pharmaceutical Corporation announced that the documentation required to bring down the vaccines were submitted to the World Health Organization on the 18th of last month.
We have
already set in place a diplomatic program to obtain the vaccines. Yesterday, we made a payment to the Serum Institute in Pune, India for the purchase of 500,000 more doses of vaccine. We believe that before the end of the next week, we will receive the next batch of 500,000 doses from India. If we work hard and conduct this vaccination program properly during the next 8 weeks, I believe that we can bring this virus under control before the next Sinhala and Tamil New Year.
An event organized by the Professionals National Front was held in Colombo yesterday. The event, titled Our Foreign Policy to Face the Current and Future Foreign Interferences, saw the participation of several high-level dignitaries such as Tamara Kunanayaka, the former permanent representative of Sri Lanka to the United Nations.
Since the collapse of the Soviet Union and the whole socialist bloc in the late 89-90 period, we find ourselves in a unipolar world, which is under US hegemony. And the US since then has been trying to remove the main obstacle to its hegemonic power is the United Nations. And the Charter of the United Nations, which is a guarantor of state sovereignty, that is our sovereignty. So when the government says we're going to leave the United Nations, it is already an indication where we are going. Human rights has become a weapon in the hands of the United States and its allies. So it is not, the discussions in the Human Rights Council, whether it's about Sri Lanka or any other country, is not about human rights. And we must understand that it is not about human rights. The Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights has been instrumentalized and taken hostage, in fact, by the United States. Resolutions were moved by Western countries against a particular country because they wanted to get something out of that country which had nothing to do with human rights.
And now finally on to your sports news. Minister of Sports and Youth Affairs Namal Rajapaksa says that his target is not to produce players skilled to play league matches in neighbouring countries, but to produce players skilled to play for the national team.
The Football Friday initiative, which is organized by the Ministry of Sports and Youth Affairs, the Ceylon Professional Sports Management and the Football Federation of Sri Lanka, saw its inaugural event being unfolded at the racecourse grounds in Colombo last evening. The matches that were played under the health guidelines issued by the Ministry of Health saw the participation of Minister of Sports and Youth Affairs and many popular players. Following the conclusion of one group stage match, Minister of Sports and Youth Affairs expressed the following views to the media.
The common problem faced by all sports, including cricket here in Sri Lanka, is lack of policies. When you generate players out of the blue, they will fade away out of the blue as well. That is not the fault of the player, that is the fault of the system. IPL is a private league. You do not have to be talented to play for a private league. We do not have to worry about the people who wish to earn money by trying to play in private leagues. We are trying to find players who are ready to make the nation win. Our target is not to produce players skilled to play private leagues in our neighboring countries, but to produce players for our nation.
The Wedding Industry Suppliers Collective urges the government and the Ministry of Health to refrain from removing the current law, which allows 150 individuals to attend a wedding.
The Wedding Industry Suppliers Collective convened a media briefing in Colombo today to voice their concerns. The media briefing was attended by veteran musicians, officials from the hospitality and wedding planning industries. Meanwhile, speaking to Newsfirst, Commander of the Army and Head of the National Operations Centre for the Prevention of COVID-19 Outbreak, General Shavendra Silva said that the number of guests permitted to attend a wedding has not been reduced to 50. He added that the COVID-19 regulations currently in place will continue to be in effect.
And with that, we wrap up prime time news here on TV1. For more news, log on to our award-winning website, that is www.newsfirst.lk. For the Newsfirst team, my name is David Paldano. We would like to thank our sign interpreter for tonight, Taraka Gabriel. Take care and good night.